DC, how you doing, sir?
Good morning. Doing great, Martin. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for your flexibility of moving till today. And I want to thank James Hardy, James Fletcher for filling in, I guess, for both of us on yesterday. You had an early day with your job, and I had an opportunity to go to the West Alabama prayer breakfast and be a part of that event on yesterday. So glad that you were able to adjust your schedule and be with us today.
We had to do it, and I think James did a great job yesterday.
Boy, now that sounds like trouble.
You
know what I'm saying? I mean, James and James sound like that could be trouble. You know, like
maybe we need to get our own show on.
Yeah,
here.
like Jesse James and Bunny and Clyde, James and James. I mean, look like somebody headed on their way to behind ball. I'm just kidding. All right, DC. We didn't get to talk to you, and like we got all off season to get to this, but we're gonna try to break down this 8A game. Are you a golf guy at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I watched the final of the Masters. I enjoyed a great comeback story. So
okay.
Couldn't help but tune in.
We might give a little bit of time to that, but this is tied 102.9, and this is still football country. Even though we lost to Clemson, I know that people wake up and want to hear analysis about this 8A game, regardless of whether there was 40,000 in the stands or 60,000. There was eyes on the tube and on ESPN. I'm always amazed, DC, that people think the number of people who show up in the stands in some way today is an indication of how interested people are in Alabama football. I mean, I hear people talk about that, and I'm going. I was even talking to Ryan Fowler. I was like, I don't care if it was 40-something thousand or 60,000 or whatever. Here's one thing I know. First of all, weather impacted the number of people who came, and number two is it's on television now. I didn't go to the game. I physically watched it. Did you go to the stadium or did you watch it at home?
I went to the stadium. I was there in the stadium.
Yeah, I figured you would be, DC. But I was on daddy prom duty, so I was driving and picking up cars and all that stuff. So I figured I'd just not get too panicky and too crazy on that. But let's get into the game. Let's look at what we saw there. Let's talk about some takeaways, good, bad, and ugly, and things like that. Let's just talk about first thing. What was the most exciting thing you saw, or what's the thing you're most excited about coming out of 8A 2019?
Well, I'm excited about our offense overall. I think when you put the players that are out there, I mean, Alabama didn't show much. It was pretty much vanilla on the first team offense. The ones that got opportunity to shine were the second team offensive players who were going up against second team defensive players. I'm most excited about our defensive backs. I think our defensive backs did a great job against the best wide receivers in the nation, Jerry Jeudy and company, Devonta Smith and Henry Ruggs. I thought watching Trayvon Diggs and really looking at a different level. He is at a different. Last year he was playing the man when he played. He used his time in the offseason to while he was injured to really learn. He didn't regress. He's progressed. He was playing his position that he was given. I watched him several times make adjustments to cut Jerry Jeudy off from making a play, to jam Henry Ruggs at the line from getting off. So those excite me when I see players making a progress right there. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, I thought DJ Dale was the real deal. I thought he plugged up the middle to stop the run several times. We ran some very vanilla runs up the middle, and he was there each time to stop. I'm excited about him and what he can do. I'm excited about this John Metchie kid. Anytime a kid from Canada, jumps on the scene like he's done with some athletic ability that obviously everybody was talking about during practice, we get to see it with our own eyes in an 8A game. Hey, he's the real deal. He can play. And one thing that excites me is I think a little known thing happened when they moved to Darius Townsend, the running back. I really think it gives us an advantage coming out of the backfield on opposing players, defensive backs and linebackers, catching the ball out of the backfield, and really with a good change of pace back. So I think Jadarius Townsend has an opportunity to contribute next year. And who would have thought that at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, Jadarius Townsend, he's probably not going to get a lot of conversation because he's at best right now running fourth string from a running back standpoint, and then you have the two freshmen coming in Robinson and Sanders. But the point you make about him as a mismatch in the passing game, if they can create where a linebacker has to cover him out of the backfield, it will be I think we'll see that wheel route where a linebacker has to run through traffic and try to keep up with them. So I definitely think that they showed a few things for people to look at, but I also think they showed us enough to get a little bit of excitement going in terms of the offense. Let's flip to the other side of that coin. What was the most disappointing thing you saw in that 8A game?
I think the most disappointing thing for me was just strictly that the second-team defense is so far behind the second-team offense. I think that in itself shows what Coach Saban has said, what I've said on your show, what you said, that the one thing we're worried about is defensive depth. And I know we've got some good, strong defensive players coming in the fall, but, to have to rely on a freshman to fill the gaps we've got right now is scary for me. So, injury, we've been injury-laden in seasons past. Injuries could really decimate this defense, defensive line, middle linebacker core. And, if we get injuries, if we get lack of being able to play for some other reasons, then it would be a really big blow to the defense. So I don't think we've ever been that thin defensively.
And DC, I actually came away probably feeling a little different, not excited, but I did feel better about our defense coming out. Even though the second defense as a whole is a significant gap to me between the second offense and the second defense, I did see we're good at outside linebacker. I think we're good there.
I agree with
and so the two areas I was worried about, if we don't sustain major injuries, I thought Barrymore and Mathis showed that they could play. And of course, Mathis has shown he can play, but Barrymore, to me, he showed some things. So that gave me a little bit of comfort there in terms of the defensive line. Now, if we had to go out there with our second unit, I think we'd be in trouble. But I think Shane Lee showed that, hey, I can play and I can help this team this year. So, and then Josh Jobe, to me, at every level, there were guys who stepped up to show a little bit of depth. And so I was not as worried coming out on the defense as I was going in. Now, do that mean I feel like totally comfortable? Should we lose key guys? No. But I felt a little bit better in terms of finding some guys that you could rotate in and not have a tremendous drop-off from a couple of our guys. I still think we're going to need that 12 he keeps talking about. I do think we're going to have a couple of those guys, Sopsher or Brian Young, or I think his name is Battle, the DB, come in, and Christopher Allen, the linebacker out of Mississippi. I think we may have to have one or two of those guys actually step up and help. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. I think we're going to have some of the defensive linemen really come in and step up. And it may be, we talk about things we don't know yet. They may get here that may be great, but you also know there's a learning curve there for the new guys when they come in. If you come in January, you got a good chance to adjust and play. Coming in the summertime, it gives you just a little bit of a deficit there to pick up. So I don't like the idea of having to rely on freshmen. When I say lack of depth, I'm talking about lack of Alabama depth. We're talking about getting back to the Alabama factor and getting back to the Alabama process. You know yourself, Martin, talking about depth from another team and talking about depth from Alabama is different. Alabama used to be a plug and play. That guy goes down and comes in is just as good or even better.
Right.
And I don't think we have that. Right, we're not at that level right now in Alabama defense.
DC, as we were going off air, we got to most exciting, most disappointment. I will throw out one thing that we didn't mention in that conversation, and we could put this under the category of surprises. What were your thoughts about the move of Cameron Latou? Because in recent times we've seen Nick Saban move guys, and it's really been about guys getting just filling a spot. It really wasn't as much about them actually being a contributor. But what were your thoughts on the Cameron Latou experiment? I'm sorry.
Well, I think the Cameron Latou experiment is more than just guys filling a spot for practice. I think he has some skill level there.
Yeah.
That he showed in this game, really getting open, running routes, blocking off the line. Obviously, he has something there that they think he can fill. And I think, that's a tight end is one of the weak points we had before we moved him over there. We didn't have much coming back other than Miller Forstall. We have some game experience. Behind him, not much experience. And, I think the one thing we know about a Steve Sarkisian offense, he's going to work the short passes to the tight end into his game plan, most definitely. And so I think we need somebody in that slot. And I think Cameron Latou did a great job in the spring game, showcasing his athletic ability to run the route and catch the passes. And even involved in some plays that took a long time to develop, he was able to get himself open. So I was impressed with it. Very, very surprised by his ability to play that position.
Yeah, I feel the same way, DC. When you look at what's going on with Cameron Latou, I think when you look at it, you have Nick Saban making this move, and now that move actually makes this almost a strength position, because when you look at it, if Cameron Latou can build off of what we saw, then you have Miller Forstall and Kedrick James with what he showed. All of a sudden now you have three legit tight ends, and now what was a weak point all of a sudden becomes a strong point. And Robert Sauciero was asking the question, is this just until James comes back off suspension? I think this is a permanent move. I don't think it's going to change back anytime soon.
I don't think so. I think he showed such flashes of greatness here that I think he'll be able to contribute even going in the fall. James is going to serve probably 4 games, I think 4 or 5 games suspension. It'll be 4 or 5, maybe 6 games before he gets back into playing game shape. But I really believe that Cameron Latou is the real deal in moving over to the tight end position. And also, you took the flip side of that, Martin. I'm encouraged by that because I think that really gives us an idea of what the coaches think about the depth of our edge rushers. I think the outside linebacker core has really done well enough to lose someone, move to a different position. So I'm excited about both sides of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple guys with questions for you. Let's get to Tom. Tom, you're in with DC. What's on your mind?
Morning, Martin. Morning, DC. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Doing good.
One of your concerns, DC, when Martin asked you, and this question's going to be to both of you, was about depth and having to rely on young guys coming in. Do you subscribe to the idea that this year our schedule with the coaching staff change, since our schedule is so-called weaker than it normally has been, what about using those games as depth developers? And do you believe that is a solution to depth when you have a schedule like this?
Go ahead, DC. I'll come in after you.
Well, I think it's possible to use more players in games that are like that. I just think that's the nature of way those games go. More players get playing time. It's always better when you're going against an opponent where you have a comfortable lead to get more people in. But I don't think that's going to be the way they attack this season. I think that depth is going to be measured out as we begin the off season coming into summer. Once those new players get here, working for the summer workouts and summer practices, I think that's where they're going to work to build the depth. And of course, they'll identify. I think Coach Saban identifies the ones that they can start getting some playing reps. And with this new rule where you can play 4 games and still be redshirted, of course you'll have more leeway to use them in games. So I think it helps. I don't think that'll be their focus, though. I think they'll try to find that depth in the practice and scrimmage, because that's what Coach Saban's MO has always been.
And Tom, I expand on that. I think Nick Saban has always scheduled. I know a lot of Alabama fans want Nick Saban to get rid of some of these soft games, as we call them, like the game between Alabama and Auburn game and that last week. I think Nick Saban understands he has 4 and 5 stars, and these other coaches hadn't necessarily figured this out. Nick Saban puts these guys on special teams because a guy going from a 5-star to coming here and sitting for a year, and he's talented enough to leave after 3 years, Nick Saban realizes he has to get them in the game. So I think he's always used these types of games in terms of not just depth, but keeping the players engaged. And I think you'll see that used more than you will even necessarily the depth side of it. And I think that's why he's telling these 12 guys that's not here, hey, you're going to be hearing a lot of stories from guys like Martin and Ryan and DC about how good Alfano is and how good DJ Dale is and how good these guys are. We still need you guys to come in, and he'll use these games to help with that, Tom.
Well, I just wondered because, last year to me, the defensive line, we didn't develop hardly anything beyond the way I saw it. We didn't develop anything beyond the front line guys.
We didn't do that at all on defense, and I think that was the lack of coaching experience and poor coaching decisions. When you don't have any more depth,
that's really my question.
I think it's more about the experience of this coaching staff and how they will develop players in the offseason and get them in game action. There's no excuse for Alabama to have limited depth this year based on the schedule and the way we beat teams last year. This should have been one of the deepest teams or more experienced teams for young players than we've ever had, and our defensive coaches just didn't do a good job. What are your thoughts on that, DC?
I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. I think coaching was the defensive coaches did a poor job of getting people ready behind. Also gave a poor job of keeping players engaged, which I think also had a problem with, led to the division and the dissension that was on the team last year.
Yep.
Everybody wasn't bought in because they weren't engaged. So
yep.
I think you have to see a complete 180 with that. I think by bringing in Brian Baker and Sal Sunseri, Charlie Huff, these guys here have an idea of how to keep everybody engaged and work them. If you saw any of the practice with Sunseri, one of his great talents is not only to coach your great guys, but also bringing other guys along and developing depth. So he's done that. So I think it's going to be a complete 180 as far as that's concerned.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you, man.
Okay, thanks.
Roll Tide. All right, Gregory, you're in with DC. What's on your mind, man?
Hey, Martin. Hey, DC, man. I got a question. You remember Nick Saban made a statement to the media about hyping up the players, trying to make them a star before time for making them making their job harder?
Yeah.
I want to know, do y'all think that he was shooting at that tour? Is that the case? Do we need to be concerned about that?
Let me make sure I understand what you're at. When Saban was talking about us putting unexpected pressure or expectations on certain players and hype, you're asking if
feel like they're a star, yeah. You're a superstar,
I don't know that he was. I mean, he could be talking about too of what was happening last year, but this year I think he was talking about the players in this particular game. Everybody talking about John Mechie and how great of a player he is. And
the right receiver,
he was talking about too.
I think he was talking about Mechie and Tagovailoa, Talia though. What's interesting to me is how people, Gregory, us announcers, we don't always cover both sides of the story. Sometimes as guys, we're supposed to be biased to a certain degree. I mean, non-biased to a certain degree. But, last year when Jalen struggled, everybody talked about how bad he played in the spring game. And everybody talked about, hold on, you're going to love this, Gregory. And we talked about how great Mac Jones played in the spring game. This year, Tua played bad in the spring game, but we're not saying how bad. I mean, how good Mac Jones played, and it's just a spring game, and that's the reality of it. It is spring practice, and Talia got a lot more credit. And DC, you can comment on this about how he played Saturday, and Tyson has been critiqued a lot harder. And I'm like, Tyson was going against the first unit, and Talia was throwing against the second. Now, you have to give him credit for that throw he made on the touchdown. I don't care if you're throwing against first team or fifth team. That was an incredible throw. But the overall play, he was playing first. He was playing against second-team guys versus starters. What are your thoughts on that, DC?
I agree. Sometimes we tend to too hard and give other people just a little, because of who they are, give them a pass.
That's right.
This particular game, Tua played a bad game. Tua didn't have a good game. That's one of my, if you have a good bad or ugly, he's one of my bad or ugly things about the spring.
I got one more question.
Go ahead, Gregory.
DC, why you think Tua would limit his leg? Keeping pressure off his leg. When he throw the ball, he kept on, hopping back or adjusting his leg the proper way. Why do you think he was doing that?
Well, I think his first game action since he's been injured, and I think that's a tendency for anybody to favor a part of your body where you're not used to using it as well. So I think that's just something he's got to get out with more game time. I think he remembers getting hurt last year, and he remembers being hurt in the scrimmage last year. It's been every spring he's ever been at Alabama, he's had an injury on his hands or his legs. So I think you want to come out of this game with no injuries.
Right.
And I think that's what
All right. Thanks, Gregory.
All right. Thank y'all, man.
Appreciate it. Roll Tide.
Well, he did a good job. But again, what's the level of comp? Would he catch all those passes if 2 or 7 or somebody's covering him? I don't know. But when he does that, then that's good. But relative to what he had to do today, he did an outstanding job. He made some good catches, didn't drop the ball. He plays fast. He's got some strength. I think this guy's going to help us next year, and I think he'll be a good player for us.
Coach, go in the middle with Rand.
I'm only saying this because you all have a tendency to make somebody a star. And when you do that, you create a problem for us as coaches. Do you understand that? All right, so can we just make sure we're just it is what it is? And let's don't go down that road after one spring game. That makes sense to anybody besides me? You got 4 coaches in the room now. You can talk to them about it. Have a coaching meeting with them, and they'll tell you what it is, how it is.
Coach Saban talking about John Mechie. Well, I'm going to go back and say John Mechie did do that against 2 and 7. John Mechie did what. This is how you judge. When Tua went against the 2s, the gap was so great that you could see that Tua was going to be really good. John Mechie made some of those second-team DBs look like they didn't know what they were doing. And he had done this same thing all spring. So I think John Mechie might be a guy who's on his way to being a star at Alabama. DC, we're back in. What are your thoughts on what Nick Saban had to say?
Well, I think that's just another way of Nick Saban trying to downplay a player. I think he's doing that for the player more than anything else. I think he wants John Mechie. One of my things in my podcast this week, at the last segment, talks about what does Alabama have to do between now and the offseason, all starting back up for the summer. And one thing is, I think he wants all the players to make progress. So, a lot of players get a big head, rest on their laurels, and never reach the potential they could possibly. So I think he sees a lot of potential in John Mechie. And I think that was more for John Mechie than anybody else.
Absolutely.
He's a great player, but he wants him to progress and be a potentially, all-world player.
Absolutely.
And, I think he has it in him.
Well, DC, that's it, a little rapid fire. Yesterday, news broke that Mac Jones has entered the transfer portal. Potentially UCLA landing point. Don't understand that with Chip Kelly as a coach, but Mac Jones and Lane Hatcher. Lane Hatcher has said that he's going back to his commitment to Arkansas State. What are your thoughts on the impact of that and what that means for Alabama in the quarterback room?
Well, I mean, if both of those players transfer, then we're going to rely on some freshmen players as backup, and Tua has been injury prone in his first 2 seasons. So if that continues, then we could have a little drop off there in our quarterback room. I think Mac Jones obviously has a lot of experience as a backup, and would do a great job of backing up Tua this year. I don't think we have much drop off if he were to have to come in and run this offense. But so I think his departure would affect Alabama a lot more than Lane Hatcher's departure.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Mac Jones is an A.J. McCarron type of player. I think had we not been comparing him to Tua and Jalen, we probably would feel much better about the talent that young man possesses. If he leaves, if he decides to leave, I think he'll be a guy that's going to be successful in whatever system he goes to. All right, let's get a couple quick rapid fires. What was your good, bad, and ugly?
Oh, the good, I think John Mechie was good. I think he was a great player. Another good on defense was Trayvon Diggs and Josh Jobe. They really stepped up at the corners to allow Patrick Surtain to move into the inside. That is going to be huge for Alabama down the road. Bad for me was Tua and the wide receivers not being on the same page. I mean, being at the game, I don't know if it showed up on TV, being at the game, there were many plays where the ball was thrown nowhere near the receiver. Balls were dropped by the receivers because they were not in the right pocket, and that's just not the way Tua plays, so I thought that was bad. And the ugly, I just hate to say it, but I was sitting in the end zone when the first extra point was kicked. It hit the upright. That's just ugly for me. I know it got better. But, I mean, after all this time, the first extra point hits the upright. It goes in, but still hitting the upright. It ought to be more difficult to hit the upright, Martin, than it is to hit the base in the middle. That's just my opinion. That's
right. It's hard to hit that upright with a ball. It's hard to throw it and hit that upright from 30 yards out. I mean, much less to kick it and do it as consistently as we do. All right, DC, when you look at the running game, I know people have used this as an excuse for the running game's productivity, that we only had 3 running plays. Were you disappointed in the execution of the running play in terms of push and efficiency?
A little disappointed in the offensive line push, because I think that we got Najee Harris and Brian Robinson running the ball. Giving them any little push would give them to gain 3 to 5 yards. They're just that great a runner. I was a little disappointed in that. I was not disappointed in Kadarius Townsend. I'm high on Kadarius Townsend. I think he did the best job running the ball, and I don't care who you're running against. He made the open spaces and made the players miss in open space. So I think that's good for Alabama. It gives us that change of pace back that we need going into the season.
And when you look at the game, there was a lot of receptions to the backs between the two offenses. I mean, between the two units. Brian Robinson leading the way with 6. Do you see that's how they're going to get these backs more touches and in this game? I mean, and keep them engaged, not just with the running game, but will they use a short passing game as an add-on or in addition to the running game?
Yeah, I think they're going to use the running game. They're going to use short passes. They're going to use sweeps. I think it's always been Steve Sarkisian's game plan to throw the ball to the tight end, to the running back out of the backfield. That gives you a mismatch against a linebacker usually. And I take advantage of that. We got some running backs that can do that.
DC, when you look at this team, this spring practice, I asked a poll question, and it ended up like 71 to 29%. But I'm going to add a couple questions to it. When you realistic goal for this team, no SEC championship, SEC championship, semifinals, or national champion, realistic based off of what you saw from this team?
Realistically, I think Alabama can win the SEC championship with this team. I think we can compete in the playoff and possibly win the national championship. It just depends on how they develop. But realistically, right now, I think we're the SEC championship caliber team.
And what would we need to do, in your opinion, to get over that hump to SEC champion? I mean, from SEC to national champion, what's the biggest areas of growth?
I think we got to grow in our, like I said earlier, in our defensive depth. I think we've got to establish the game plan for running the ball to set up the pass. It's kind of like we did in this spring game, but I think we got to establish that more. And we got to have limit our mistakes. I think it was just too many mistakes, drop balls, wrong plays, that sort of thing. Let's limit our mistakes to get that to be that best team we possibly could be.
Will Reichert be starting at kicker, punter, both, or neither?
I think he's going to be starting at kicker. I think he'll be backup punter. I think Skyler Long has done enough to stay in that punt this year. And I think you're going to see a combination of Bulovas and Reichert. One will be kicking off, one will be doing extra points and field goals, and it may be a combination of the depth of the length of the field goals. I'm not sure. I think they're both going to kick this year in the first game.
All right. Was the biggest news coming out of A-Day Nick Saban and his hip? Does that give you concern with as active as he is and engaged as he is, that this could, be more than what he's letting on?
It doesn't concern me. I just have to feel like Nick Saban wanting to get it fixed. My thought is probably interfering with his golf game more than anything else.
All right, what's your grade on the coaches?
I thought the coaches, the defensive coaches, I'm so excited about our. I think the defensive backfield has made so much progress under the new coaches, and of course Carl Scott was still there, but Huff coming in, and then the defensive line doing so good under Baker. So I thought the coaches did really well. I think Pete Golden is doing a better job as the coordinator this year. So I look forward on the defensive side of the ball. I think the jury's still out on Sarkisian. I think we got to see a little more than a vanilla game plan to see about that. But I'm not concerned about him at all.
Yeah, and I know you said Huff. You meant Kelly, Charles Kelly. Yeah, I knew you. Just so everybody know, who you know who we're talking about.
I meant Charles Kelly.
Yes, that's okay. Hey, DC, when you look at what you got coming up, tell our listeners what's on the DC Report that they can find at DC Report.
We can find it at DCCapstoneReport.com. It's at David Cott 50. It's out there. You can follow me at David Cott 50 on Twitter. But on Facebook, we have our DC Capstone Report Facebook site. You can like that page there. This week, we looked at the review of the offense and the special teams in the first segment, the defense in the second segment. And then we looked in our third segment, which I think was interesting, at what Alabama needs to do to be better, to improve. What do you want to see Alabama coming out of the spring into the summer practice?
All right, and they can find that. You can find it at DCCapstoneReport.com. DC is a normal guest on Tuesday, so if you enjoyed this segment today, Wednesday audience, make sure you tune in every Tuesday. He joins us from 6:15 to 7 o'clock, and he'll be back with us on his regular scheduled time on Tuesday. Thanks, DC, for being flexible.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it.